What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from Zoom again, and this time we are here with Matt of Acid Throne. Thank you so much for being here. It's great to have you here.
It's a pleasure, man. How you doing?
Doing good. I want to give a huge shout out to our mutual friend and commenter for connecting us. Who would have thought that, after meeting Mick in that one day in Iceland, I would be connected with another band? Out of all the days in Iceland, it's the day Solstafir plays. So, huge
Yeah,
shout out to
man.
commenter and the excellent community. The first thing is always first. We got the demo out now, which just came out back this previous spring. Is this maybe a good representation of the direction that Acid Throne is going to be going into for a full length album in the future, or is there going to be a lot more experimentation in the future?
I think there's going to be a bit of both. Like to a few of us, I think that is, you know, we're super happy with that, but we're also trying new things as well. I think that we did those songs sort of. I say really early. We've only been a band like less than 12 months, but I think we're still trying new things as well, and we're kind of finding our sound. So it's there'll be a bit of that and a bit of stuff we haven't heard before. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And we're in the process of writing a full length now, actually. So yeah, it's pretty interesting.
That does sound pretty interesting. And being that you are still a very, very young band, I normally don't ask this, but being that it is so young, how did Acid Throne sort of like come together? Were you all in like different projects before and you all just met up, or was this sort of like a religious epiphany that made you want to start a band?
No, so we were kind of like yeah, we were all in a punk rock band that had been going since about 2019, and and the pandemic really kind of hit that hard. We didn't practice for like 9 months, I think, through the main part of it, and everything got kind of stale, and we didn't know kind of where we were going. And we had a member kind of drop out, and we all kind of, I guess there was a bit of like soul searching that went on, and we kind of all knew that we wanted to carry on playing music, but didn't really know what we wanted to do. And then a few of the guys kind of wanted to start like a Doom project, and we thought, hell yeah, we'll do that. We're up for playing anything, and that's how it kind of came together. And so there's a few of the guys that were kind of that wanted to start the Doom project. They'd been kind of thinking about things for a while, and then two others, me and another guy, came to it kind of fresh, I guess. I think we'd listened to various bits of Doom or Doom related stuff before, but trying to bring something else to it, I guess. So for me personally, I've always been a big kind of black and death metal fan, so kind of bringing that edge to it, which I hope comes across in the demo a bit, and I think it will come across in future stuff as well.
I've
And there's
noticed.
also like hardcore stuff as well.
What is it with punk musicians going into doom metal? Did you all just feel like, because I've noticed a pattern, like did you all just feel like your songs were too short, so let's do a genre where it's going to be like seven
Now,
times longer or something like that?
honestly, so I watched the interview and the chat you had with Mick, and he was obviously saying a lot of the same stuff, man. I honestly think there is almost like a doom renaissance, and it's all these guys that have been playing punk and hardcore for so long, and I'm like, you know what? I'm getting old. I want to play some like just riffs. I want to slow it down, and yeah. So honestly, I genuinely do think that is happening. We've got other bands in our local scene that have started off as kind of hardcore bands, and they're bringing kind of doomier stuff into their set. And I genuinely think it is a trend. And I don't know if it's the same like where you are, but it seems like there's a kind of doom resurgence happening over here
Oh,
for
oh,
sure.
oh, it's the case here in New York. I've interviewed doom bands you would have never thought in a million years were in hardcore bands. They would be all like stoned to be like, yeah, we like to write, 14 and a half minute long songs. But I used to be in a hardcore band where we wrote songs that were 45 seconds. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's just like a regional trend. I think that this is almost kind of like the way that old people move down to Florida from when they were young. I think young punks move down to doom when they get older. I
This,
think that's
this is the retirement, man. Yeah, I do think there's like even not just from like punk and hardcore scene. I think there is like a transition to doom in the wider metal scene. Like obviously stuff like, you know, thrash is still going, but it obviously had its heyday, and I do think that things are changing. Like mainstream metal is changing. Um, all genres go through their stages, and I feel like doom is coming to a kind of a good point in time.
Definitely, definitely. And I've had a saying as a joke: the longer the beard gets, the longer the song gets. That's the trend I've been noticing.
Yeah, definitely. I'm working on mine, man. So yeah, I started shaving my head, and I decided that I had to kind of make up for it somehow. But I am fully representing on the beard game for the whole band.
Oh, that's an important task, man. That's a very important task. After the drummer, it's the beard. But when it came to the formation of this band, did you guys all get together knowing you wanted to like get into the more realm of doom, or did it kind of just happen that way in a way?
No, that was the, you know, when this thing started and it came out of that kind of punk rock band, it was always the kind of intention is this is what we would do. Um, but I think our we didn't really necessarily know what type of doom or how it would sound, and then that evolved from all of our influences and what it's become, and just a kind of a lot of there's been a lot of like open and kind of honest conversations. What are we doing? What do we want to sound like? And that's the same. Everything we do is kind of done that way. All the writing is always kind of collaborative and stuff like that. So yeah.
Mhm. I like to have this debate. What is doom to you? Because like, you know, like UK has a very popular. I would say has two of some of the greatest doom metal bands of all time. That being Paradise Lost and My Dying Bride. But like, doom is so vague now. Like a band like Catatonia sounds nothing like a band like Sleep or a band like Neurosis
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah.
So like, to you, is there an essential element that all doom bands sort of like have to have?
It's funny, like I think we kind of throw this term around or this phrase around, and it's something that people have started putting on t-shirts a lot. Um, like hail to the riff. For us, it's all about like being, you know, riffy, and something you can like move your head to without having to move your body and or your, you know, throw yourself around. Something we noticed early on is, you know, it's quite rare for people to mosh at Doom shows and stuff. And from where we've come from, that's weird, but everyone will be there. Like everyone's kind of slowly grinding away with their headbangs and stuff. So, yeah, in terms of essentials, I guess there is that kind of. We always focused on slowing things down as much as we can, and we have when we're writing, we have this motto that, you know, nothing ever sounds worse when it's slower. So
Yeah.
so we just like to make things like you know, as sludgy as possible. Having said that, we still have riffs that we kind of refer to like bands like The Sword. When something kind of blinding comes out, I say fast, it's not like thrash fast, but something, you know, a bit of variation in there. So yeah, I think for us it's all about the kind of, and I don't know if that's even going into the kind of sludge genre, but that kind of sludgy riffiness is key for us, I guess. But like you say, man, such a wide genre. Where we are and what we're doing is, you know, miles away from kind of stoner bands that are still considered within that kind of doom genre. But yeah,
Yeah.
I guess we kind of try and slot in there with, for us is the riffs and the speed, I think, man.
Yeah, I mean, people call Black Sabbath doom metal now, and I know that they weren't calling themselves that when they started. And yeah, and you mentioned stoner metal too. I to this day I don't know what that means. I've gotten stoned listening to Cannibal Corpse, and I've gotten stoned listening to Mariah Carey. So like that's another term that's so vague. Yep.
Yeah, definitely, man.
Yeah. Do you find that being that you did form together and that all of you play a role in singing together, do you almost feel like you all have to kind of be in a very similar headspace if you're all bringing vocals together at once, or do you think that maybe having different inspirations or different emotions or even different backgrounds help maybe influence Acid Throne's sound?
I think there's definitely an element of that. Like so on the demo, we've got this the kind of opening track, Confess Your Sins, where there's definitely kind of like hardcore crew shouts on that. And that was something that was the idea of the drummer actually. And then when it actually came to kind of singing it, that's how it came out. And I never would have thought to do that. And then I guess kind of my influence is very much moving away from kind of clean vocals into bringing the kind of more Black or Death stuff, and kind of really doing as kind of as many growls and that kind of thing as possible. So and there has been talk of, you know, we're all big Monolord fans, so trying to kind of, you know, if there's scope in there to bring in clean vocals, it's not something I can do for sure. But you know, if any of the other guys want to work that in, I think it's something that might appear in the future. And we've got other points like you know, there's another track on the demo, and something we do through our other songs as well is putting kind of almost like whispers in on quiet parts. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on there in terms of kind of different genres feeding into that.
Yeah, the first band I thought of when I listened to your music was Monolord. That was the first idea that came to my mind. It was Monolord and then Neurosis. And
that's little, so nice to hear.
Yeah, a little bit of Baroness. I thought Baroness's music, like they're not even just with their vocals, but just their guitar tone in general, is much cleaner. I've always said that, like, I've always said that Baroness isn't stoner metal. I call it Xanax metal because it's so peaceful.
Yeah. I mean, guitar tone is something that is like, it's a massive thing for us. And I guess going back to that question about what is doom, that's a huge part of it as well. In terms of, you know, I'm as a bassist, I'm a huge fan of, you know, the Big Muff. Always using my deluxe muff, want to make things sound like as chainsaw as possible, and really buzz the crap out of it. And then we've actually, one of our other guitarists, he's literally changing his distortion buzz pedals almost on a weekly basis, man. So he's going through HM2s and Big Muffs himself, and, you know, stuff I've never heard of. And he's just like, I got this new pedal. I'm like, what the hell, man? I barely remember the last one. Well, but it's an interesting point, because I think tone is, we're always on that pursuit of tone, like trying to find something that just fucking blows our minds.
Yeah, and as long as
that's a big thing.
As long as if your guitarist isn't using like 17 Metal Zone pedals like all the beginners at Guitar Center use, we're all good. That's all, because that's a weapon of mass. That's a weapon of mass destruction right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, being both a vocalist and a bassist too. Like, were you? I don't know if that was your position in your previous hardcore endeavors, but like, were you taking inspiration from artists like, you know, Lemmy or Peter Steele in a way? Because Peter's, like, I've always said Typo Negative is like gothic doom in a way. So like Peter Steele, I thought, is really, and no disrespect to Lemmy, but like Peter Steele is often like the first person I think of when it comes to a bass player and a singer.
Man, I mean, both of those dudes, and Peter Steele especially, has always been a massive influence for me. Like growing up as kind of a young goth kid, I always kind of looked at Type A Negative and was like, man, that dude is you know, cool as fuck, man. So if I in any way can channel, you know, what those guys did, and I do actually play a Rickenbacker, so I always, every time I put it on, I've got that Lemmy feeling. So yeah, I mean, absolutely, man, those guys do have a massive influence on me. I think definitely Peter Steele's bass playing more on me, because I love and something we're kind of big fans on is not having bass that just kind of fades into the background and never has time to shine. Like actually being able to have like verse melodies that just have bass and drums is a big thing for us, and there'll definitely be more of that in the future, and that's definitely something that I've taken from Type A Negative for sure.
Yeah, you know, people say, you know, this is rock and roll. We've all heard our fair share of bass player jokes back in the day, but yeah, well, just remember though, Peter Steele and Lemmy had more girls than any guitar player or singer ever did. So, but yeah, but bass is such an important instrument in terms it has both an emphasis on rhythm and melody. I've always said it is like the bridge between drums and guitar. When it comes to tracking bass, do you always need music before you lay down your bass parts, or do you prefer, or have you ever had like a pattern that the rest of the band would write according to?
We've done a kind of mix of both, really. So when we actually recorded the demo, we did that as a live recording, and we tried doing track stuff. And for that, we found that kind of doing individual tracks to a click took away some of the rawness of what we were trying to achieve, because we wanted it to sound kind of a bit rough around the edges, kind of noisy, distorted, and that kind of thing, and not too polished. There's definitely, I think, some bands that I think we agree that we listen to, and for a metal album, it just sounds like super polished, and it kind of takes away from what it is. But then equally, when I was talking about those kind of more bass solo things, it has been a case of just kind of working to a click and doing it that way. Yeah. So it's again a kind of a mix, I guess.
And being that you came from a hardcore background, is there any similarities in how you portray yourself in a doom project versus a hardcore band, or being that they are almost kind of like night and day in terms of genres, you're almost expressing a completely different side of yourself?
Yeah, so obviously there are massive differences, man. I personally have never been like straight edge myself, but obviously I've known quite a few people that are, and doom is obviously like the polar opposite of that, and the whole stoner scene and everything. But one thing that has really kind of stayed true for us is just being as DIY as possible. So when it comes to like I think all of our artwork so far, other than we went to Branca Studios in Spain for a t-shirt design. Other than that, everything we've done has been done by us, in terms of like the demo kind of design, with the kind of stone circle. And also, it goes to kind of things like putting on shows. We're definitely looking to kind of put shows on for ourselves and just the scene in general, because you can't, with a genre like doom, which is kind of niche, you can't always rely on those shows in your hometown to come up that often. So that's something we're doing, and I think that kind of DIY ethos has just really stayed true for us and run through everything we do. I hope it does anyway. I hope that comes through.
Definitely. I feel like DIY at this point is almost a genre within itself. I could tell by listening to a band, whether it is like punk rock or hardcore or doom or sludge or any of that, just with the constant rawness that's prevalent in both, there's just an essence of it being sort of a DIY in a way. And it's funny you mentioned that too, because I interviewed John Campbell of Lamb of God yesterday. And being that
Nice, man.
Lamb of God was more of a punk rock band before morphing into metal, I was asking, is there any part of you that is still like just as punk rock as you were when you started? And I guess it never leaves you.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned that, man, because we just played last month. We played Bloodstock Festival up in Derbyshire, and they headlined on the day we played. So it was, yeah, freaking amazing to see them live, man, and to play before them. I think we played, so obviously not on the same stage. We were on the Jägermeister stage, which is kind of just stage right to the main stage. We went on literally as Dark Funeral finished.
Wow.
And then as we finished playing, Killing Joke came on. So we felt super lucky to have that slot, man. And then to see Lamb of God play later was freaking incredible. Yeah, it was amazing.
Does it go without saying that that's probably the best show ever at the moment? Cause
yeah, man, by a long shot. Yeah, I mean we've got some sick stuff lined up, of course, but yeah, that's definitely a high point for us so far. Yeah, it was amazing, and not just those guys, like so many other great bands played that festival throughout the weekend. So on the Friday, seeing Behemoth like blew my mind. And then King Diamond headlined, Merciful Fate with King Diamond, obviously on the Saturday. And I think who else we saw? We saw I Hate God, were like freaking incredible. So yeah, it's a sick festival, man, and we hope we can play it again for sure.
Yeah, Acid Throne and I Hate God would be a great show too. I see some I Hate God in the DNA of Acid Throne as well. So
yeah, it's definitely something we're listening to, man, and. We didn't get to meet those guys, but yeah, we were definitely there for their set, and it's freaking incredible.
Definitely. And the final question I wanted to ask you is and you should be expecting this because I asked Mick this as well, is the UK sort of scene that you're involved in, because the reason why is because having this DIY aspect. I've interviewed countless bands from the UK of all different levels of notoriety. But you know, they always have great teams of people helping them, and especially within the metalcore scene, whether it would have been Employed to Serve or Loathe, Architects, you name it. Like that whole metalcore scene. I've even said that metalcore is Britain's greatest export, being that Australia and Massachusetts are the other two big metalcore capitals, and I think South Africa or India is going to be next. But yeah. Do you how has like the sort of DIY scene in Britain been, as opposed to, you know, like there's so many amazing bands that everybody in America has heard of, but is there just as much of an underground there as well?
I definitely think so, man, and I think it's going from strength to strength. Um, COVID and the pandemic really hit the music scene pretty hard here, and on top of that, Brexit has really screwed things up for bands as well. It's made it harder for bands to tour here. But I think people, fans and stuff just got so sick of not being able to do things for so long that when music came back, it's just been huge, man. When we were playing our first shows, so this is, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5, 6 months ago tops or something, we were kind of selling out venues and stuff. And I think one of the biggest shows for the size of the venue, I think we'd maxed out tickets, like 300 tickets, and it was just kind of, it was surprising and just so great to see everyone back and see that support, and that's something that we've seen not just in our hometown, throughout the UK. So stuff like Bloodstock absolutely heaving, and that is called, it's kind of promoted as more of an extreme metal festival, I guess, more than mainstream kind of stuff, and also kind of London-based festivals, so like Desert Fest and Incineration Fest. Super underground bands, especially Incineration Fest, but still absolutely packed out, man. So there's definitely a scene, and I think it is going from strength to strength, man.
Definitely. We just had Desert Fest here back in May, and there was fantastic underground bands. Some Neri, which you should check out. They're New York. They didn't play at this festival, but they should have. Godmaker, who's a fantastic doom band. You got all these like real sludgy stoner bands that really are killing it. But then they would open up for, like at our festival. It was High on Fire ended it. Baroness played night 2, and Corrosion of Conformity played night 1. So
sick, man.
yeah. So it's a really I feel like the stoner scene is like the most is really has the most camaraderie behind it, just like hardcore.
Absolutely, man. There's definitely, like, I was just gonna say, man, we had friends of ours in like a London-based band called Old Horntooth that got onto the Desert Festival this year. Such great guys. They run something called the London Doom Collective, so just putting on doom bands in London, and we'd love to kind of get onto Desert Fest, man. That would be like I guess it's one of those big ticks for us. If we could make it on the Desert Fest lineup, we'd be like, made it.
I mean,
so that's, yeah.
I would be saying that if I was playing in between Dark Funeral and Killing Joke on the same night as Lamb of God, but okay, like no, keep setting goals.
I guess it's kind of it's about scene recognition, isn't it? And being kind of it. I guess it would feel for us like being kind of accepted into the kind of doom and stoner scene, which would be great. But we'll see how things go in a year or two. Man.
Definitely. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today, and again, thank you to Mick for Commenter for connecting us. Is there just anything else that you would like to plug? With when can we be expecting the full-length Acid Throne album, and are there any shows coming up that you'd like to plug?
Yes, we've got a few things, man. Like I said, we're kind of in the process of recording or writing that album. We're kind of demoing stuff as we go. We're hoping to kind of get that out kind of spring next year, if we can. We're hoping as well to maybe to book in for recording with Chris Fielding from Conan for that, similar to Common Man, because in terms of, there's just no one better in the business as far as we're concerned.
Conan is another band I should have mentioned. Thanks for bringing them up.
Yeah, man, they're absolutely, like, huge for the UK, man. And in terms of shows, like I said, we're looking at arranging a little something for Halloween with our friends in Commoner and another local band. And then we're playing 2 shows. So we've got a show lined up in November up in Rotherham. So that will be our first kind of northern show. We're playing with a great band signed to APF Records called Swamp Coffin. They were another band that played Bloodstock, and if people haven't heard them, they definitely need to get on that because they are fucking sick. And then we've got a show lined up. I don't think it's been announced yet, in December sometime up in Sheffield. So look forward to that. And yeah, that's about it, man.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you so much, everybody. We are here with Acid Throne. Be sure to check out the demo with 3 great tracks: Confess Your Sins, Forgotten Realms, and Altars. We will see you next time on Heavy New York.